Okay, we're rolling.
With you all. My name is Dolomar LeBron. I am the pastor of the church. This church has been a pillar in this community of East Harlem for almost 100 years. We're going to celebrate 100 years in May of 2022. So we're really excited about celebrating our centennial. And we're a very special church. So the name of our church is First Spanish United Methodist Church. But commonly, and here in East Harlem, it's known as the People's Church. And our understanding of who we are and how we live out our faith is one where we are here for the community. And, you know, what is a church if we don't work with our neighbors? And Juan, as our friend, who is literally our neighbor, we want to be a cultural hub. We want to be a spiritual hub here in East Harlem. And a lot of the work that we do always includes some kind of art, some kind of music, some kind of painting, because we understand that, like, art translates what words cannot. And so I really appreciate this event. I really appreciate having you all here. In addition to our worship services, we offer community programs, classes, programs for not Sunday. Our busiest days here are the 6 days out of the week that we are here present and that we're here active in the community. So if you want to learn more, please feel free to speak to me, to speak to Raymond or Tanya in the back if you want to learn more about our programs. And if you want to continue to support, one of the things we love to do is we love to make space and create space for programs like this, for organizations like this, through the support of people like you who can give, either giving, or if you're interested in donating your time, or maybe you have a program that you think would be a good fit for who we are. Please reach out to one of the three of us. In the back, when you enter, there's in the corner, there's like a little chest. You can put a donation in there. There's a barcode if you want to donate on PayPal. But the idea is that we believe que el pueblo salva al pueblo, right? It's the people who support the people, and that's how we continue to resist and keep on. And so we appreciate you for being here. We welcome you. If you need the bathrooms are basically to your left, my right. You'll see the signs there. And we hope you have a good evening. We do hope that, and we want to ask as much as possible to please keep your masks on while we're indoors, while we're in the space. And if you didn't get your temperature checked or didn't sign into contact tracing, please make sure you do so before we leave. It's the minimal thing that we can do to try to keep each other safe in this season and so that we continue having these programs. So God bless you. I hope you have a great event. And with that being said, I want to introduce my friend Juan, who will tell us a little bit more about today's panel. So thank you all.
Thank you. I'm vaccinated and boosted up. And I think our panel recipients also all have been double vaccinated and they have received a booster. So you will pardon us if they don't wear a mask because the sound will be much more clear. All right? And I'm extremely thrilled to find these beautiful neighbors, the People's Church, right? That everybody should go online and check out People's Church. The history since 1969 is marvelous, political. It's one of the things that inherently WhiteBox has always been enjoyed the bad name of being that dirty old political art space from the days in Chelsea. Yeah? In 1998, when there were 7 galleries, then grew to 400, and we got the hell out of there. So the Lower East Side. 10 years later, the rents, the real estate, the profound marketing practices of the art world. Since we love community, we came here and Raul and I decided to jump. This has been a hermit crab year for WhiteBox, and we've been presenting white noise projects in Bed-Stuy, at the mansion in Red Hook, and so forth. And just before the holidays, and to go to run with the times, it was kind of beginning to hurt quite a bit. We all know friends who are suffering from this malady or from pain to pain, and there's no gain. So Raul, Zamudio, and I have decided to curate the first open call in 23 years of WhiteBox, called Church also has a wonderful program of healing, spiritual and physical acupuncturally and so forth. So I'm not going to bother you and bug you any longer with this. One thing I can say is that we will be opening shop in the Alphabet City, which is the other part of the New York Poets Cafe territory, and we'll be exploring the Double East. We're going to do projects in Alphabet City, and we'll continue doing projects in East Harlem. I'm Spanish by birth and Dominican by residency, and look like everybody wants me to put a mask on. Giving that funny looks. More programming, politics. Gay section to be doing heroin, where Lou Reed writes Perfect Day, which is our, the song. We decided on giving it that title, etc. It's perfect, you're floating in the park drinking sangria Sunday, etc. Yeah? So Max Log is going to give us 5.5 minutes of the medication against that moment of being so sexy, shooting needles, etc. But before I pass the mic to Raul Zamudio, I'm glad to introduce you to Matt Sullivan, who is bringing along his gift of music, sound art, and his organization, 2BNTC, is going to be joining WhiteBox and vice versa. And to the other side, you don't see Mr. Alan Goodman, who is the great genius behind the Culture Project, now with a new name, also is going to join us on Avenue B.
So I don't get a chance to speak?
You have a chance to speak. You're going to walk, or you want me to bring the mic to you? Yes, Alan is going to say a few words.
I want to just remind you, in 1969, I had this psychedelic experience, and now I spend my time restoring magnificent grand pianos, and then create the Culture Project, which has been in existence. Now it's 25th year, so I'm 2 years older than Juan, and I'm looking forward to joining him on Airbnb for the future and working with that. I refer to them as my esteemed colleagues. So thank you, Juan.
Remember that Timothy Lear is dead. Raul, will you give us the introduction back to that, and then we go with the video.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Juan, and incredible that Max is here. But I basically want to say that I'm a great fan of his work, and it's fantastic that he's here, and I think this video will set partially the tenor tonight, but also a very key piece in the exhibition. And after the video and musical interlude, I believe, then I'll say some stuff about the exhibition and introduce our distinguished panelists. So without further ado.
Well, this is really why we're here, because some scum-sucking junkies came in to Pat and Emily's house and ripped up all their stuff, so this is for those people and anyone stupid enough to do that maggot drug. This is called Smack Yourself Senseless. So look at this beautiful junkie and I say, do not remove your sunglasses because I don't want to see the pins in your eyes. You're not beautiful, you're ugly. And before I beat you to death with this dictionary, read this page. Ugly like horse face, ugly like hopeless, ugly like a hot louse, that's a very destructive form of aphid. Ugly like hollow, that's an empty space or cavity within a solid body. Ugly like a Third Avenue whore, and that's really ugly. Ugly like hepatitis, which means you're hospitalized again. And no, I ain't coming to see you. I don't want to see your ragged arms, the tracks of your years. I don't want to look at you lying there, sniffling and scratching your yellow flesh. Scratching and sniffing. Stop scratching those fucking scabs on your face. I don't want to see you one more for the road, the expanding list of people I've known, and some of whom I really loved who've gone out on that shithouse spike, and those that aren't dead yet, well, they're crippled enough. More like assholes than heroes. In fact, definitely assholes, and they'll never be heroes. And what's this shit you're mumbling about? It's my life, it's my wife. Your wife? Christ, why for anyway you want to marry the white stuff? Easy way out? It's your easy way out? Sure, no one can touch you when you're cruising on your little cloud, and oh, the romance mechanics of the spike and the spoon, the absolute safety of the knot, the cigarette your fingers don't feel as it burns down to ash, the garbage gathering in your ratty apartment, the sick wine that smack puts into your vocal cords, the ease with which you'll fuck over your best friend or your mother or your grandmother if she's still around, anybody or anything just for that next taste. One sheep that stays calm around the smell of blood and death. And this walker's function, the reason it stays alive, is to lead the other sheep into their doom, calm and stupid under the knife. And there you go, bleating sheep led on into shithouse heaven by the romance of junk, and copying it and tying off and shooting up, and thinking that makes you just as hip as Burroughs or the basketball boy, and those other few survivors like Johnny Guitar or his mentor, the aging Mr. Richards, the original blood change boy himself. But can you afford a trip to Switzerland every 6 months, dear? No, you can't. You're not so special, cretinous victim. And when you do go blue-lipped down the outhouse tubes with that moldy spike in your arm, well, in 2 days or 2 hours, since jump time doesn't align with Greenwich Mean Time or Standard Time or crying time again or any kind of real time, nobody will even remember your name. Your death will have no style, no grace, and absolutely no reason. But life's so hard, you say. Yes, the daily life is hard, especially if you weren't born rich and lucky. So why do you chump change Pavlov slobs make it damn near intolerable by getting into a habit you can't possibly afford, and nothing gets easier except that couple of hours sucking on Mammy's tit, and then boom, dreamland disappears. You're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. You're down here with us that's trying to glide by too. Living on the edge, all of us living on the edge, and you make that edgy life even more difficult for the people around you, who not only have to nail down their valuables and keep you from clogging up the toilet with your gimmicks and your blood-stained paper towels. Not only this kind of tedious grief, but they also have to listen and listen to your dreary, self-pitying line of horse shit, the stultifying descriptions of your tacky version of paradise, the endless litany of junk and copying it or kicking it, or getting just a little to sell so you can make enough money to get yourself straight. And please, I'm so further down. So why not just go out like permanent? Instead of all this grief, why don't you half-wit boosters shoot up for real the next time your little junkie clock runs out? Don't be stealing any more from you, and pull the trigger. That will really get you off. Because standing in line with the other sheep inside the abattoir, and sooner than later, like those meat little muttons, you too will be dead meat on a cold white slab. If you're not a terminal cancer patient or Robert Frost or terminally rich, an X ought to equal X in that particular equation, then you're only
And I have a not-for-profit organization that is going into business with Juan and with Alan. We're called 2B and 2C. My partner, who died of cancer related to 9/11, left us funds to start conserving his art, but making contributions to things that we believed in. Thank you. So I'm going to play a piece very close to me. I grew up in the Baptist church when it was a Martin Luther King place to celebrate. And the spiritual that my family sang very often was Amazing Grace. And I think there's a key phrase in it. I once was lost, and now I'm found. When Ken died, I was lost. And I'm a teacher, I'm back in teaching, and I'm finding myself again. And being here for me is a part of my resurrection, or resilience, if you will, because we all have it. And as human beings, we need to support one another. And I have been supported. My students do that. And I'm here tonight to play something close to my heart for my dearly departed Ken. Water and key. Pardon me.
just before the panel discussion. Jorge Quevedo, the composer, composed a special tune for today, called Perfect Day.
Thank you. Good evening. I wrote a piece called Perfect Day, but I changed my mind. Because when I came here with Juan to the space, I met Raymond Sr., the father of Raymond, the deacon of the church. And I started thinking, he gave me some music that night. He was preparing music for Felipe Luciano. And I thought how powerful this church, the energy of this church, but the whole 111th Street, this is the Machito way here, from the Cuban band leader Machito, 111th Street. And then we have the John Lords with the photograph by Hiram Haristani. And that photograph is at the Smithsonian Museum right now with John Lords. And further east is the Charlie Palmieri way, which is my piano teacher. So, speaking to Raymond Sr., who's mixing the music there, there was a club here at the corner of their avenue. And about 15 years ago, I happened to play there with Carlos Patato, the Cuban percussionist who invented the cha-cha-cha. Of course, there's some people that in Cuba that say somebody else invented it, but we had the honor of playing with him. And I thought that instead of playing the Perfect Day, which I wrote for a 12-string guitar, I was going to speak about these Yoruba drums that in the 1940s, Francisco Guevara brought the first sacred Yoruba batat drums here in Madison Avenue, 111th Street. The first time that this music that came directly from the homie of Benin, the Republic of Benin, West Africa. The first time that these sacred drums were played here. And I happened to have the honor to play with Francisco Guevara in California in the summer of 1988. So I thought that it was apropos to that, to introduce these sacred drums. And that's what I'm going to do. This is, it's called Ipe. And in Yoruba it means a farmer. It's one of the first plants that was cultivated. And it's also a sacred drum. And the concept of the music, that sacred music of batat drums and gourd drums began with these plants here. This is the grandfather, and this is the more many years later. So I'm going to illustrate some things, and I'll take it from there. So what we know as the clave in which lots of the Latin music come from, began in this drum here before this. So I'll just illustrate. so on and so forth. And he's here many years later. And after hearing Amazing Grace, I feel like it's so sublime, so loud.
Very much for that, for both all three performances. Wonderful to start off the evening. So what I'm going to do is explain a little bit about the exhibition and first introduce my guests, and then I'll explain something about the exhibition, and then I'll address some questions, very sort of general questions. But at the same time, though, if anybody feels compelled to ask anything, we dependents. To her left is Giorgio Hanman, who is a social worker and artist. He graduated from the Silverman School of Social Work in 2012. Giorgio completed a mindfulness facilitator training at the Engage Mindfulness Institute and has incorporated mindfulness into his social work practice and harm reduction work with young people experiencing homelessness, veterans, people living with HIV/AIDS, and individuals navigating substance abuse. Giorgio is committed to working with others to promote wellness, joy, and harmony. And to my right is Nora Toshihiro Kawa, who is an artist, filmmaker, and activist who has presented his work in museums, galleries, art fairs, and biennials around the world. Would you like to add something to that, Nora Toshihiro? That's all working. That's okay.
Yes, but today's discussion was wondering what is best to connect with in this meeting today. But anyway, so I have a non-profit organization for today's day, and I started organization with artists and curators and some musicians, so on, for making the transformation of the world. And we have New York and Singapore and Japan making the therapy treatment for the children with trauma. So we're working on right now for the children who are suffered under the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, and many children commit suicide. So we're trying to make a special program to treat these children.
So, as you can see here with Nora Toshi's participation, she's sort of bridging this field here that we are about to engage in. But to get back quickly to the exhibition, Perfect Day, Drugs and Art. What we want to do with the exhibition, when Juan sort of approached me about doing something about this topic, is that, yeah, it's affecting a lot of us in many different ways. But you know, the question about consuming either drugs or hallucinogens, you know, has been part of human existence since the dawn of history. And this sort of impulse to try to produce changes in consciousness is no more dastardly or evil or wrong than, like, let's say, other type of yogic practices or meditation. There's something innately human about wanting to explore the unknown, to question and to try to seek out answers as to what we are doing here on this planet and what happens after we leave this life. And so these are very interesting questions in which historically hallucinogens or other type of psychotropic substances have somehow facilitated that. And spring, of course, to today, there's now this psychedelics renaissance movement that's going on. And before you sort of dismiss it as like, you know, a bunch of crazy people trying to just wanting to get high or something, it has a lot to do with, again, humanizing the crisis that on the one hand has to do with opioids addiction, and that's a word that I certainly should put in quotation marks because it tends to dehumanize people who have succumbed to opioids for whatever the reason might be. So in any case, the exhibition, when, as a curator, often artists that I know ask me, oh, Raul, what are you working on? And I said to one, I said, well, I'm working on a show called Drugs and Art, and immediately this artist said, oh man, I don't do that stuff. And I know it sounds kind of humorous, but it strikes to the misconception about drugs in our culture today, because often that a very negative aspect of it is what strikes us in terms of the media, but it's a much more complex issue. And when we began to organize this panel, a friend, not the same one, said, oh, Raul, you're doing this panel with these social workers and a nurse and Noritoshi. I suppose you're going to talk about that shooting gallery, right? And of course, this has to do with the injection centers that New York has been the first city to do this. But it's not so bizarre as it will seem, as I know that some of my panels will address this. So the exhibition Perfect Day, of course, uses the song by Lou Reed as a kind of point of attraction to the exhibition. But as you will see, hopefully, as the exhibition run will be up till January 6th, it's a multifaceted show of painting, video, sculpture, text-based pieces, and some of the works has a very broad thematic scope. For instance, one of the first videos that you see is by Jason, and his work entails, Jason Mena, excuse me, his work entails scraping the Mexican peso into a powder, and then once all of that has been taken off the peso, he rolls up that cellophane, plastic foundation, and then inhales it as if it was some kind of narcotic or something. And before we sort of dismiss that, within the context of Mexico, of course, money, the drug cartels, is something that's part of the work. So the exhibition and the works within it sometimes have a more sort of conceptual, poetic, metaphoric addressing of drugs in our culture, either in terms of politics or in terms of history or in terms of biography, as a case with one of the artists who basically has filled up a very ornate Baroque framed cabinet of the prescription drugs that she consumed for a year. So the exhibition addresses many different topics, and I hope that we will be focusing on some of them today. So I guess my first question for the panel is, can you explain how prevalent is the crisis in terms of opioids that we encounter in media and so forth today? And has the pandemic exacerbated that, or what? Where are we now with that?
We can hear much better when the microphone is next.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
We can hear much better when the microphone is next to your mouth.
So I'm going to make a suggestion, because that's not what I was prepared to do, just field questions. So maybe, I know that we each had like a little bit of a presentation, and then maybe we could field the questions afterwards. Would that be okay? Does that feel all right? Okay. I have a really loud voice. I might not even need the mic.